This special episode does not.
A majority of the stories are going to be from Dubai, and these people have actually been haunted earlier, and the stories have been out on the news, and some of them have like abandoned their homes, including the McDonald's staff, the famous like Al Khail Gate. You can Google in the news and you can just check Al Khail Gate 33, building number 33, and wow, even the maggots had 33. Okay, so building number 33, and you will find the whole story of the McDonald's staff who they completely abandoned their accommodation that was based in Dubai. Majority of the stories are gonna be from a TikTok channel called Ibrahim. Now he's a UAE based, he's an Emirati, and he's a news reporter over here. Make sure you check out till the last video, because the narrator, Mr. Ibrahim, even he's actually experienced that, and in the last video you can actually see his own recordings. Okay, so do stay till the end of the video. So let's start the video now.
This story was submitted by a family, a mom, a dad, and 3 daughters. The story happened in 2016. Jumeirah 1 is an old area in Dubai. Many houses there are old, though they are very expensive, since they're just a 5-minute walk from the beach. This family moved in a new house with a 1-year lease contract. After organizing furniture, they moved in and the 3 daughters picked the rooms they wanted. On the 3rd night, the youngest daughter, aged 10, came to her sisters crying, saying she doesn't want to sleep in her room anymore. When they asked her why, she didn't want to speak. She then slept with them in another room that night. On the 4th night, she comes back at 1 a.m. crying again, but this time she seemed petrified. She was shivering, begging not to sleep in her bedroom. One of the sisters gets up and walks towards her room. She bends over to get a peek, while the 2 other sisters were staring at her from behind. This sister got paralyzed from waist up. She wanted to scream for help, but she was not able to move a muscle. And her sisters behind her didn't know that she was struggling. She was frozen in her spot. She fell down a few seconds later, and she runs to wake up her parents. She was shouting intensely, explaining what just happened. The father gets up and gently goes inside that bedroom, as if someone in there was calling him. He goes in and shockingly closes the door behind him. It was a terrifying moment of silence, as the whole family waited for the father outside that door. A minute felt like an hour. He comes out with an agitated face and says, "All of you should leave this house now." The mother knew exactly what her husband was going through. She acted normal. She took her daughters and left the house. Never try fixing a situation like this if you're angry. This is the latest update. The father is fine. The daughters are okay. The whole family is safe and happy in a new home. But just to show you how haunted this house is, in 2018, the landlord decided to demolish and rebuild this house. They were 2 weeks behind schedule because 13 deconstructing equipment were damaged during the process.
You see, it started off with the children first, and then the parents, they realized it. You see, Jumeirah is actually a high profile area. It's like only the most richest people, they stay in that location, and as per the story you can see, even they had to abandon their home. Generally most of the stories, they don't come out so easily because people are afraid of being shamed, that like what are you talking, man? Are you making sense? So nobody's going to believe you that easily, but people do experience this. Let's continue to the next story.
In part 11, I spoke about a story that happened in Qatar with a group of cousins that were playing hide and seek in the dark. And then I explained about how I myself have experienced the same thing when I played that game. This story took place back in 2010 in my house when I was 12 years old. As some of you may know, I'm from Dubai. I'm a Muslim. We pray in this house. We've never seen anything nor heard anything. This story happened around March in 2010. The weather was nice outside. We had a big family gathering outdoors with a buffet catering setup. When we were kids, I was only tight with a few cousins, 2 girl cousins and 4 guy cousins. The rest of the cousins were old at the time. We used to play a bunch of different games every time a family gathering is held. Hide and seek, tag and run, board games. My personal favorite was hide and seek in the dark. It was just unique in its own way. You can get very creative with the spots that you hide in. It was already late at night, most of the guests were gone and the house was empty inside. So I gathered 3 of my cousins and my baby sister, and we played around in the guest's room. It didn't even take a few rounds. Things went wrong right from the very start. I was the one seeking because I lost the shuffle. I was counting outside the room and the girls were inside hiding. I shouted outside, "I'm coming in," as I was opening the door. So I started looking around. I found everyone except one of my cousins. She's still in there hiding. She was 11 at the time. So I go outside, trying to get my sister to spill the beans about where she's hiding. Yeah, I was cheating. And all of a sudden, we all hear our cousin inside giggling, saying, "Ibrahim, stop." We all sunk into the floor as she said that, knowing that there's no one in the room. She's alone inside in pitch darkness. Something was physical with her inside the room, and she thought it was me. She can't even see what it is. My heart dropped. I didn't even want to open the door to see who it was. We all kicked the door open, turned the lights on. What the heck is going on? She stares at us underneath the dressing table with her eyes wide open. "Was there no one in here?" she asked us. No, there wasn't. We run to our moms, bro. We tell them everything, and you know how parents are. They just don't believe their kids. Our moms didn't believe us. Parents, consider the things your kids tell you. Demons are dangerous. Jinns are life-threatening. And to wake you more, jinns usually go after the younger ones. Unfortunately, kids are the ones that sense them the most.
You have seen my story, right? It started off with my child as well. So, I don't know, there's so many questions that have not been answered, like why do these things go behind the children first? Majority of the stories, this all starts with kids itself, and as usual, people like me, you just, you never understand your kids, man. They are not able to tell us, and we are not able to understand them. So kids go through this phase, they just don't know where to go, whom to talk. Let's continue.
This story took place in Dubai in the year 2007. The story I'm about to tell you was told to me by the actual characters that went through this terror. It was never shared online nor disclosed to the public until now. An Emirati married couple with 3 kids lived in a villa in Jumeirah 1. Their youngest son, Ahmed, at the time was 8 years old. Ahmed would tend to have horrible dreams every night, and he would complain about this to his family. But it seemed kind of okay at the time because children in his age group tend to have nightmares. But Ahmed's dreams started to pick up their intensity a few weeks later. They knew it got more serious when Ahmed started having sleep paralysis. He would feel like there is something with him in his room. Later on one of these nights, the bad dreams he had were no longer dreams. Something would wake Ahmed up during the night. He would have no control over his body as he gets out of bed. He would walk out of his room, go downstairs to the kitchen, and go close to the back door. He would open the door. As his foot leaves the door, he would gain control over his body again. He was certain that it was not him sleepwalking. He was conscious throughout the whole trip. After gaining control over his body, he would run to his mom crying from fear. She slept next to him later that night till the next morning. The next day, he would sleep, wake up, and the same exact routine would repeat. Goes downstairs, goes to the kitchen. As he steps outside, he gains control over his body. This would happen to Ahmed almost every night for 2 years straight, to the point where Ahmed got used to it. Though that's not the freaky part about this whole story. After Ahmed's reoccurring event, Ahmed's mom decided to lock the kitchen door and hide the keys. She wanted to test this out on one of these nights. So later that night, Ahmed sleeps, wakes up, goes downstairs to the kitchen, grabs the doorknob, and there you have it. The door is unlocked. The door locking process would take place every single night, but the door will always somehow be unlocked. Like something is trying to get Ahmed out of that house at night. Eventually, Ahmed turned 10 or 11 years old a few years later. And thankfully, these paranormal night walks have stopped. He is 23 years old today, and nothing has happened after that last time 12 years ago. But the story still haunts him till this day, wondering why and who was trying to get Ahmed out of that house.
It always surprises me how these doors, they unlock themselves. You might have heard my story, like, the closet area, the door which we had sealed with the tape. It used to be open almost like every once in 2 days or 3 days, and I have told you that the AC wasn't cooling enough, and when I came and checked out, the door was completely open. That was the beginning, and we didn't even realize that we were actually haunted. And after that, you have seen by the ending of the videos, my main door, that used to be open, and I have you can see my videos where I'm literally going checking, I have actually locked this room, how does this door open? Really fascinates me. Let's check out the other video.
The story took place in Dubai on the 13th of April 2018. Amira, a middle-aged Muslim Filipino woman, spent 20 years of her life living and working in Dubai. Back in 2018, she lived alone in a residential building in Al Rigga. She had a decent job. She worked 5 days a week and had 2 days off. On one of her days off, the 13th of April, it was a Friday night. Amira and her girlfriends planned a hangout on that day. Around 4 p.m. on that day, Amira gets a call from her landlord, which rarely happens. He told her, "Hi Amira, as agreed, don't forget to let me know please." And she was confused. "Let you know about what?" He said, "The thing we spoke about an hour ago." She said, "But we never spoke an hour ago." He said, "I asked you if you wanted to extend your contract because I'm traveling in a few days and I need to process your papers. And you responded by saying, yes, I want to extend." She was so confused. She looked up all her texts, all her messages, but she never spoke to the landlord in a long time. She ignored the situation. She ended up coming back home around 10 p.m. on that same night. When she pulled up at her building, the guard of the building approached her running. "How are you down here? There's someone in your flat and I thought it was you," the guard said. Something very creepy is happening to Amira. Amira and the building guard both go upstairs to her flat, but there was no one there. So they go back to one of the control rooms in the building and they rewind the CCTV footage. And indeed, there's a person that cannot be seen, supposedly being Amira, entering her flat. Amira confirmed after she met with an imam and explained her story. People in the same neighborhood have told Amira that they saw her and said hi, and she ignored them. And this was even a bigger shock to her, because she was never at that location at that time when they said hi to her. There are two possible explanations to this. When Amira spoke to the landlord and ignored these people saying hi, Amira was not at her state of mind, meaning Amira was possessed at these specific times. But that still does not add up. Then who was the woman that entered her flat? Who was the person her neighbors were saying hi to? Certain that that was Amira. And this is a logical explanation. Amira was cloned by a jinn many times in several locations. But why? Why did the jinn choose to take Amira's physical appearance walking around the neighborhood? And who was the person that spoke to the landlord and asked him to extend her stay?
Let me just pause. Okay, so this was the main concern for me, the reason why we abandoned the old house. The moment I saw it taking the form of my kid, I understood that maybe in future it might take my own form, and maybe I don't know, it can just tell my wife to do anything, to tell my kid to do anything. This is what I actually feared in my previous home, and that's the reason I left. Al Rigga is actually, it's heavily populated by lots of Filipinos in Dubai here, and that's why I call them Kabayans. It's really, it's in such a heavy populated area also these things happen.
This story was submitted by Faisal bin Salah. My name is Faisal bin Salah. I'm 34 years old and I've been married for 12 years. We have 2 daughters. One is 5 years old and the other one is 10 months old. I set up a company in a free zone, so we stayed in Dubai for 2 months, from July to September. We stayed at a 1-bedroom apartment at Hayat Regency, Dubai Creek. It all started from day 1 with very strange things happening. My wife woke up one morning with brown spots on her hand. It's believed to be a sign that someone attempted to make sihr, but it has failed. I told my wife that it must be something else, do not worry. But she was very convinced, because we both witnessed the lights turning on and off on random nights. And these were signs that we believed that had to do with jinns or black magic. On that same night, I started growling very loud. I got up, jumped from one side of the room to the other, where my wife was still on her prayer rug, and I told my wife. She immediately realized what was going on, and she started yelling Ayat al-Kursi. While she was reading Ayat al-Kursi, I lost the strength in my hands, and then I started gaining consciousness. We went to the other side of the apartment, and I told her, quiet, quiet. Why are you yelling? We're waking everyone up. She didn't believe who I was at that state that I was in. She panicked, and she told me what happened in the bedroom. I needed some time to realize what has happened as well. The next day, I called my mother. She knows a lot about Islam, and she said that we had to leave that apartment immediately. Around 8 p.m. on that same day, I told my wife that I'll be going shopping. She said, the girls and I are gonna come with you. We're not staying here alone. We all left the house together, and we got back around 10 p.m. We came back and saw all the lights off, but we remembered that we kept them on, cause we left it with the key card in the slot. When we turned the lights on, all hell broke loose. The kitchen cabinets were swinging front and back. All the dishes and glasses were being thrown. It was very loud, scary, and traumatizing to look at. We quickly run downstairs, report this incident to the manager, and we ask for our money back. We called the manager upstairs to witness the situation, and he believed his own eyes because he was a Muslim as well. The apartment was wrecked and the doors were still slamming front and back. We then moved to another apartment in Palm Jumeirah. A month later, I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone. My wife came up to me at 3 a.m. and she told me, do you know what Sophia just said in her sleep? Sophia is the 5-year-old daughter. She said boiling water in a Moroccan dialect. Sophia only spoke Dutch and English. That was a warning not to go back again.
Let me just pause it. So you see again here, it's communicating with the 5-year-old daughter. Let's continue watching out the video.
Out of all stories, this one definitely gave me shivers. This story took place in Dubai, in a small town called Dubai Healthcare City, in the year 2015. To be specific, in building number 27, May, a 30-year-old from the Philippines. She's an employee working in a store in building 27. She started her job in that store hearing many rumors about this building from other employees in the same place, saying how building 27 is haunted. She would keep hearing different stories from several people she met in the building, including the security guards. On the night shift, when all the stores and clinics are closed, there are no people in the building, and the guards have to go through paranormal experiences every single night. But by far, the scariest story she ever heard was the story about the little boy in the clinic. His name is Jun. Many staff have seen this little boy around and in the clinic. To non-Muslims, Jun is a spirit of a little boy. To Muslims, this is not a little boy. Jun is a shaitan, in other words, a jinn, entities that are created by God that live in their own world. They're also known as demons. In Islam, when a person dies, the spirit of this person does not stay among us. Spirits are lifted up in the skies. Jinns live among us. On one of the nights in 2015, the energy in the building was off. Everyone in the building already got used to the paranormal events that they experience. But on that specific day, the building flared up. Something or someone upset the beings in this building. At the store, May and her colleague were hearing noises of someone pushing a shopping cart. They go and check, but there is no shopping cart, and there's no one there. The noise keeps coming back every minute after they go and check. May and her colleague are dying from fear. They decided to ignore the noise and act like nothing is happening. An hour later, they hear the guard yelling, "Stop, stop." May looks out and sees the guard chasing someone, but she can't see who it is. A few minutes later, the guard passes by the store and asks, "Did you see a little boy running? Or did you see a boy run past the store?" Her throat dried up as her skin started to feel colder. She was horrified, and she said no. But she knew exactly who the guard was looking for, because as the guard was asking her the question, Jun was right there, staring at her, behind the guard.
You see the word Jinn, and that's actually a Middle East name where they use the word Jinn for a demon. Even sometimes I get confused, like, was my son actually calling Mr. J? I don't want to say the name. Or was it actually Genie? Wow. And you see, there's also one more thing. What he said, that the people who died, they are raised up, but the jinns live among us. Many of the time, I think I've seen some of the videos where people are saying that they have been haunted by the dead ones. Sometimes they are feeling happy about it. What I feel is these things are just manipulating it. They are just a bunch of liars. Maybe they just come, maybe you lost your dear one, and maybe they're just taking the form of your dear one and maybe replicating their voice, and you tend to feel that, like maybe it's your relative or maybe it's your parent who have passed away and they're trying to communicate with you, and you might feel happy. I just watched the movie, which was it? The Conjuring 3. Just recently I watched that. Even in that, the daughter was actually being communicated by a demon in a way, like she was thinking that maybe it's her mother. And later what happens? She gets possessed. Your spouse or your parents or your kids who have passed away, please don't trust these entities. They are a bunch of big liars. I don't know what's their purpose, but the end result is, I think it's the same. Majority of you get possessed. So beware, guys. Let's check out the other video.
This story took place in Dubai in the year 2016. This story was published by Jules Beck a few months ago on Khalij Times. It was a regular school day, and I was 15 years old at the time. I was laying in bed, and I felt something creep up on me. I couldn't see what it was, as I sleep in pitch darkness. I thought it was just my legs going numb. But then I found out that it wasn't. Whatever this thing was, it was heavy. I can feel it walking up towards me, on my body. I also heard strange noises in my ears. Sounded like something was screaming. I turned to see if something was around me, but there was nothing there. I kept thinking this could have been a nightmare. My mom suddenly walks in, and she says, "It's okay, dear. You're probably having a nightmare. I'm gonna read you prayers and everything will be fine." This creepy thing went away, and I fell asleep after my mom read her prayers. I woke up the next morning asking myself, wait a second, how did my mom even know I was having nightmares? So I went and asked her, and she looked at me confused. "What are you talking about? I was fast asleep at that time, and I did not walk into your room. This never happened before, and I still wonder till this day if I was alone that night." So that's Jules' story. I want to cover something myself. This is my theory behind this story. This 15-year-old child definitely had something that's known to be called yathum, scientifically known as sleep paralysis, but religiously known to be a demon that paralyzes you during your sleep. This is religiously known. If a house is filled with prayers and members of good deeds, good jinns usually protect the house from bad jinns. And the appearance of the mother walking in was definitely a good jinn protecting that child from a bad entity.
This was really interesting because I can relate it for my own experience. I think what happened with me in 1991. I think I was around 6 years old, and I was just a small kid, just playing around near my home, and there was a staircase which was like still not developed completely. It was still under construction, but the metal bars which come through the cement. So as a kid, I used to always hold that and just swing and just turn around. So one day what happened is I caught it and I actually getting shocked, So I was just like, there's a term called death grip, because once you get hold on to like the power supply and your muscles goes in spasm and you're not able to release your hand, and that's where you pass away due to that. So actually I was going through this. Now his theory, what I feel has actually happened with me. The reason why is, when I actually caught the bar and I was like getting shocked, I was like and my teacher, my school teacher, she came towards me and she said that leave it, like multiple times she said leave it, and I actually finally released it, and I fell down to the ground. I hurt myself and I was bleeding from my head, and I went and I told my dad about this incident. My dad came running outside. Luckily it was Sunday, so it was off for him, so he came out. Then he called all the neighborhood and they checked, and it was actually having current supply from that place. And I'm still shivering for this thing, because my father was looking out for the teacher just to know what exactly happened. So my teacher was never around that place. So what happened is, the next day my father actually came to the school just to thank her for saving my life. And guess what the teacher said? She was like, what are you talking about? I was not in that place. I didn't see anything happening such. So like me and my father, we were like completely surprised if it was not my teacher, because my father thought is maybe it's somebody else, and I was like, maybe I thought it's my teacher, but maybe it's somebody else. But I clearly can still remember the date that it was actually her, and she's saying that it's not her. I think now, as he said, there's a good jinns. Maybe they are angels also. I still shiver thinking about the moment, because by age of 6, I think I shouldn't have been even alive, and I'm 38 years old now. So something saved my life, guys. Something saved my life. These stories can bring out your memories. Let's watch the other video.
This story took place in Sharjah, UAE in the year 2011. For those who don't know what black magic is pretty much witchcraft, and a process used to summon demons and then come to an agreement to harm a certain individual. Majid, an 18-year-old back then, lived in his parents' home. They all recently moved to a new location after purchasing a new house. The house was big, but it was not new. 3 families have previously lived inside that house, and not one of those families was able to live longer than a year inside that house. Though no negative reviews were made about that house before Majid's father purchased it. After a month of moving furniture, Majid's finally able to sleep in his own bedroom. On the first night, a nightmare awakens Majid. He reads his prayers and he goes back to sleep. The next day, Majid is awakened from his sleep again, dreaming the exact same dream. He reads his prayers and he goes back to sleep. The same thing would happen every single night for 3 months. He gives up and he goes to tell his father about the nightmare situation. What is the dream? His father asks him. I see a 3-year-old child guiding me to the water tank behind the house. And when we both reach the water tank, we're both attacked by a big black dog. That's what I've been dreaming every single night, says Majid. And indeed, there is a huge water tank at the back of the house, and Majid never thought of checking it out. Majid and his father both read their prayers, and they go to that tank. There's a big lid on the top of the tank that is shut tight. They open the lid, and they see nothing inside but clear water. Majid notices a white bag sealed tight thrown all the way deep inside that tank. They manage to get it out, and they find out this was black magic that was placed deep inside that tank for many years, harming a child. Inside the bag, they found human hair. The black dog in the dream represents a demonic presence near that water tank. After an Islamic procedure of undoing the black magic, the child that was potentially harmed should be free. And Majid never got the dream again after that day. Until now, he has no idea who that child was. And why did that child try to contact Majid specifically? And is this child dead or alive?
See, even here, even the entity is like trying to communicate with the child. Now, I think I don't remember. I've actually seen a similar incident. I think 10 or 12 years ago. This happened actually, I think, in New York, one of the hotels, and one of the Chinese lady, who was like in the lift. I think Lam something her name is. Just try to Google it, guys. And she was like behaving weirdly in the elevator, and then she goes missing. And after many days, they found out she was actually drowned in the same, like, that kind of tank on top of the hotel. Yeah, I think Cecil Hotel incident. Yeah, I just remember that name. It's a very famous name, that one. So this something is like that kind of story.
This story took place in the year 2019 in Al Ain City, the United Arab Emirates. Mira, a 17-year-old Emirati girl, back then had a 14-year-old sister and a 20-year-old brother that was a police cadet in training. On one evening, Mira's mom was upset with something she did, so she grounded both her and her sister. She took away all their electronic devices, phones, iPads, headphones. On that specific day, her elder brother was reserved back in the training camp, and her father was in Abu Dhabi for work. He only comes back on weekends. So no one was home but Mira, her sister, their mom, and younger siblings. At midnight, the girls decided to go to sleep, so they switched the lights off. As Mira's eyes started dozing off, her younger sister jumped on her bed, frightening Mira, and woke her up. "What's wrong?" Mira asked her sister. As she was crying, she responded by saying, "Something moved my bed." Shivers went down Mira's spine as she heard her sister say that. She stood up and opened the lights. Nothing was in the room. A few minutes later, they hear someone whistling outside their room door. That same person whistling outside the door goes inside the brother's room and slams the door shut. Now they can't see who it is. They can only hear what's going outside in the hallway. They looked at each other scared and confused as their elder brother was not home. A moment later, the same door outside opens and the whistling continues. It sounded very familiar to these girls, but they were certain that their brother is not home, so they started panicking. They had no phones, no iPads to call for help. They're grounded, remember? The back and forth steps of that person outside the room kept going for a solid 1 hour, and the whistling would continue. Doors outside the hallway would open and close. Mira remembered that she had an old laptop in her room. She was able to get a hold of one of her friends from school, and she made her call her mom. Her mom eventually showed up, and she found no one inside the house. After that night, they slept in their mom's room for weeks. Until this very day, they still live in that same house. And on some occasions, a few paranormal events would still happen in their home.
You know what, I think there's a TikTok channel in the name of Bishop. I don't remember the whole name. He once told that there are two types of haunting. One is intelligent haunting, and one is, like, I think, the recurrent haunting. Intelligent haunting is something where the demon is like trying to get to you, it's trying to scare you deliberately. But whereas the recurrent haunting, it happens like once in a week or once in 2 weeks, and it like goes on the same thing. And I think this family has been experiencing the same haunting, is like happening same thing. So I think they have got used to it. And you see, it's an Emirati, they are the locals in the UAE.
This story took place in the UAE in the year 2021. Yes, this year. Hamza, a 19-year-old young man, was out camping and barbecuing with his friends in one of the deserts in the country. After finishing all their activities, they were enjoying the cool breeze in the dark, and then they sat around the fire. It was story time. They told each other stories of paranormal activities they have experienced. The stories kept coming till midnight, when the boys realized it was late and time to go home. Hamza was the only one with a driver's license back in early 2021, so he had to drop his friends back home. Some of them lived in Murdiv, so they asked Hamza to stop at a house over there that is abandoned. Some rumors in the neighborhood move around and say that this house is haunted. The house looked very creepy and old. It was half broken and had a bush that was growing on the top. Nobody was spooked out. Hamza and one of his friends go inside and start knocking on the gate. They wouldn't stop knocking and laughing about the whole thing, until one of the friends told them that it was not a good idea to disturb the demons, but they thought it was funny. They hopped back in the car, driving down the same street, laughing off what they did to that house. Hamza had to drive another block away to drop one of his friends that lived in Murdiv as well. The street they were driving in was so dark, so Hamza tells the boys he's gonna switch the beam on. And one of the boys in the back says, "Imagine a ghost pops up as soon as you open the light." Hamza giggled and switches the beam on. And Hamza froze. He sees an old lady in front of the car with thick skin, pale as paper, wearing a full white dress and had very long hair. A real jinn stares at Hamza and Hamza's friend, the one that was back with him at the house knocking on the door. Hamza and his friend started breathing heavy. Their legs started shaking from intense fear. They were locked tight in their seats and no words were able to come out of their mouths. The creepiest part is the other friends weren't able to see anything. They were confused to what their friends were seeing. He turns the blinkers on and the lady vanishes out of nowhere. On that same night, Hamza drops everyone home and goes straight to bed. In his sleep on that same night, Hamza had nightmares of that same figure killing him. He woke up from fear and told his friend the nightmare story. The same friend with Hamza that saw that jinn had the exact same dream of that lady in white killing him. And since that day, they never messed around with any house that was abandoned. This is how jinns warn you. A'udhu billah. Gratefully, that was just a pinch from the jinns. They never haunted them again.
Just a warning. Maybe some challenge or some TikTok challenge and they go and they mess up this thing and at the end of the day, bad things happen.
This story took place in Dubai in the year 1996 and the real characters of this story are Emirati women. Back in the day, and actually till this day, there's a game called a Ouija board. In Arabic, it's also known as Ouija. It involves a group of players playing in the dark, burn sage, light up candles. They place their fingers on a peck and then ask Ouija questions. Now, there are many videos on YouTube of people playing this game, and every time people play it, they freak out or things go wrong. You would ask a yes or no question or a question that involves one answer, with everybody's fingers placed on the peck and the peck will move on its own. When you buy the board, it comes with some sort of ritual that the players must read. I do not advise anyone under any circumstance to play this game. The Ouija board is not a joke. You can do your own research. A group of girls in 1996 decided to play this game. One of their friends brought back the board from the UK after her recent trip. They laughed about this game and doubted that it works. They meet up on a Friday night in one of the girls' houses, light up the candles, and start reading the rituals. They close the light, place their fingers on the peck, and start asking a few questions. But the peck doesn't move. They keep trying for another 5 minutes, and still nothing happened. Until one of the girls asked, "What can we do to make this game work?" The peck slowly moves to the letter Q, U, I, E, and then T, which spells the word quiet. They knew that they had to be quiet in order to play this game. They all freaked out when the peck started moving. One of the girls decided to leave, but her friends forced her to stay and play. They started asking yes and no questions to verify this entity's knowledge. Questions such as, "Are you real? Yes. Do you live with us on Earth? No." Questions kept going and the peck was moving all around. Until one of the girls asked, "Are you going to hurt us?" Yes. The same girl asked, "Are you alone?" No. Because it seemed that that first entity was friendly, but the one that is with that entity is not friendly. Now the rules of the game is do not move your fingers from this piece. Two girls freaked out after that answer and took their hands off. The candles blew out. All of the girls ran out the room and went home terrified. Except the last girl that left that room, who later then threw the board game in the trash before completing it. Her personality changed after that day. She's always quiet, barely laughs or smiles. She was not social anymore, her facial features started to change, and she cut herself off of her social circle. The girl is still around till this day, but no one knows why and who made her permanently change like that.
I don't know why people play Ouija board. I seriously don't know. Maybe just as a thrill. But these are all dark magic stuff. Even Lee, I think. I see his videos, he's playing Ouija board, trying to communicate with the demon. What's the point? And end of the day you cry that you are haunted, and still when people are there to help you out, and still you go on making the same mistake again and again and again. Let's see other video.
There are a couple of paranormal spots in the UAE that are known to be haunted, such as the Pan Emirates Tunnel, the Khail Gate building, the ghost town in Ras Al Khaimah, the Jumeirah house, but by far the...
You know why he never talk about the Al Khail Gate is because of the McDonald's stuff, and I told you because there's a big company behind it. You know, no company would like their name to be along with such kind of videos. So most probably that's the reason he never made a video about that. But Al Khail Gate apartment, building number 33, which I told you, man, it's really haunted. Imagine a whole bunch of McDonald's staff, they leave that place altogether. How terrifying that would be. And by the way, this story is about the Kasami Palace. We are just a regular people, guys. We are just a regular people. That's a palace. Imagine the royals have also abandoned their homes, which they call as a palace. Let's see the story. And here he is also recorded his own experience. You can also watch that.
Most haunted place. The most place that made visitors' spines shiver. With the most recorded paranormal incidents is Al-Qasimi Palace in Ras Al Khaimah. This palace was built by the late Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Ahmed Al-Qasimi in 1985. Since the late 1980s, this palace was already abandoned with all the furnitures inside. A man was called to come into this palace 20 years ago. He was a little bit worried because he knows about the supernatural spirits that roam its halls. He had a maintenance work order to work in one of the rooms in that palace since the palace was sold to someone else. On the first day of his jobs, things such as his tools would be found misplaced. He would take something out of his bag and then leave, come back, and that tool is back in the bag again. These few things were only confusing him. He did not think otherwise. A few days later, these chandeliers would rock right and left while there was no wind in that room. In some occasions, this man would hear children's voices inside the palace and ignore it for hours. Through reflections, he would see glimpses of children staring at him for a split second. He was reporting these cases to the people in charge, but no actions were taken. A week later, this man would see furniture being tossed around like toys in front of his eyes. Entities that have intense amount of power that can manage to toss couches and tables across a whole room. He felt completely uninvited and decided to leave that work order. On that same year, holy men would come, read prayers, and cleanse the palace. No serious reports were made later on. But till this very day, the voices are still heard by some visitors that these beings don't like. And these same visitors would witness what seems to be like children would stare at them from the windows as they walk out.
This story happened in 2004. Al-Qasimi Palace is known to be the most haunted place in the UAE. I already covered a story about this palace in my Horrifying Stories Part 4. Please check it out when you can. Sahar, a 20-year-old girl back then, she visited the UAE for the first time. She had a group of friends and one of them was Ahmed. Ahmed today is married to Sahar, but back then they were very good friends. They were a big group of friends. One day, they all decided to visit Al-Qasimi Palace. It was around 9 p.m. when they decided to go. Now, back in 2004, the palace was way more dangerous to visit than it is now. The palace was recently opened for tourists after the religious cleansing was done. Sahar and her friends reached the palace. The caretaker at the palace did not allow them in at first. After minutes of trying, he agreed, and he told them that whatever happens inside is not his responsibility. And he told them to walk up the driveway and keep the cars outside. They started walking, and as they were walking towards the gate of the palace, Ahmed grabs Seher's arm and he says, "I don't think this is a good idea." They all agreed not to go inside and they cancelled the whole thing. Now put in mind, they are still outside. Seher wanted some sort of memento, so she grabbed a stone from the driveway to keep it as a memory. As she picks up the stone, she heard giggles and her name being called from the roof of the palace. She immediately drops the stone and keeps walking. They all hopped in the car, and she pointed at the house from a distance and she said, "I thought you said there's no electricity here. Why is one of the lights turned on?" As they all turned to look, the lights were already switched off. Ever since that night, Seher was suffering every single night. Whatever she did outside that house, whoever she disturbed, and even though she did not go inside, she was the only one that was tortured by jinns for 6 years of her life. She would regularly wake up with scars and bruises on her body. She would have terrible nightmares, and she would be physically grabbed by unseen beings. All of this is because of her visit to that palace. In 2010, all of this has stopped. But just imagine what would have happened in 2004 if Seher went inside the palace.
I don't know if to be called
In
as a gift
episode
or is
4
it a curse?
and episode 47, I talked about one of the world's most haunted destinations, Kasami Palace. And just yesterday, I visited this palace. My colleagues from
This
NAS
is the
News
old recording,
Arabia
yeah?
and I were trying to get a filming permit in this palace for several weeks, and we finally got it. We took our filming equipment and we visited the palace. This palace was abandoned since 1985, and ever since, no one was able to live here because of the recurrent paranormal events that take place inside. At first, when we reached, we were just messing around, thinking that most of the stories were just rumors. After sunset, visitors were not allowed to visit the palace. It was just us. And that's where things started taking a turn. While the guys were taking B-roll footage for the news coverage, I noticed a room. Something in the corner of my eye caught my attention. I felt like someone was sitting down, staring at me. I ignored the uneasy feeling I got, and we head upstairs and continued our work. We went inside a room, not touching anything at all. Carlo, my colleague, pulls a joke and says, "Jinns, you can come out now, don't be shy." And I kid you not, this happens.
Oh shit. Bro, this is not us, bro. Wallah al-azim,
Unfortunately, I didn't get the shot of when it happened. A painting that was hung for more than 30 years falls down, almost injuring Carlo after what he said. We were asked to immediately leave the room and leave the portrait as it is. We went to another bedroom and we noticed a special antique painting. My team set up the equipment and started filming. I was using my phone, documenting my filming crew, until we experienced this.
I'm gonna take a facial over here. I don't know.
The door leads to an empty pantry with no other access. The door was locked, and we were certain that there was no one inside. I kept documenting my filming crew in case it happens again, and as expected, it happens again.
Bro.
They love banging, yeah?
About 20 minutes after this incident, Carlo was not feeling good at all. He felt cold, disturbed, and unwelcomed.
Huh?
Let's go.
What?
I'm not feeling good.
You're not feeling good?
Yeah.
Why?
He was acting very strange. We took all our things and left the palace for good. For paranormal enthusiasts, I'd recommend visiting this palace during the day. Do not go at night. Kasami Palace is not a joke.
do check out Mr. Ibrahim's channel on TikTok. He's got a lot of stories similar to this, going from New York to Saudi Arabia to even I think Sweden and Poland. Many places the stories are there. So do check out his channel, okay? It's really nice. Also do mention in the comments like which of these stories you have probably experienced the same kind of stuff. So do write me in the comment the number so I will know which story is that. Okay? And if you have any suggestions for me to make a reaction video on some people who have been haunted out there, so do mention that below. If when I get some time, I'll do the reaction for that. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you watched till here, I salute you guys. So take care. I'll meet you some other day. Bye.